How much is that?
Hey there, and welcome to the Podcast Editor's Mastermind, almost exactly on time edition. This week, we're going to be talking about how we get the work done. But before we do that, we'll do quick introductions. I'm Brian. I'm on the bottom. You can find me at toptieraudio.com. And above me over here is
Daniel Abendroth. You can find me at rothmedia.audio.
And I'm Jennifer Longworth. You can find me at bourbonbarrelpodcasting.com.
Unable to join us this week was Carrie Caulfield. I keep getting her name wrong when I type it in the show notes, and I don't want to get that wrong. It's important to get names right. I don't know if you guys know that. But this week, we're talking about getting the work done. This is actually something that Patrick mentioned on the most recent episode, which was episode 91. They recorded without me, and it was stellar. You definitely need to go check that out.
Thanks.
One of the things that he said was that he really appreciated some of the older episodes where we talked about tools and processes and all that kind of stuff. And so we thought, hey, that's probably a good idea because in the last 5 years, nothing has changed in my business or Jennifer's or Daniel's. So that's what we're doing here. I thought maybe as a starting point, we could share a little bit about what's changed in our businesses. I know we've shared a little bit of this, but not everybody's been with us all the time. And I'll kind of start out. So last year, I had typically 10 shows that I was working on a monthly basis. Some of them were more frequent than others. And through a series of people leaving shows and leaving people that I subcontracted from and that kind of stuff, I'm down to basically 2 shows, which meant that the contractors I was working with had to let them move on. I had a couple people who were doing some editing and one person that was doing some podcast management with like helping with show notes and scheduling and that kind of stuff. And I basically had to retract all of that to a one-person operation, which, as you can imagine, has changed my processes a little bit. So who wants to go next and share a little bit about what's going on with them?
Well, I'll go ahead because I have a very similar story. Things are going really strong. And then I think it was towards like the end of last year. So I think last year was probably like the lowest as far as like new clients coming on. And then like at the start of this year, I had, I think 3 clients pause their show, with one of them confirming that it's an indefinite hiatus. One may be coming back in September, and then one that was supposed to be a month that is now 2 months, maybe 3 months. So we'll see how that ends up. And there was a couple people going from weekly episodes to every other week. And then one actually switched to monthly, but I was able to upsell, like, because they do like video interviews. And so then I pushed the idea of like taking 45-minute interview and then taking like 6-minute chunks out of it and uploading that to YouTube and like making shorts and like a bunch of more content out of that one interview. And so still the same amount of money as every other week, but only doing monthly.
And then there's me. My friend set me up a spreadsheet so I could better track my billing and my clients. And in December, I had 6 paying clients. Well, my spreadsheet is at 25. Not all have started yet. So some of them have signed contracts, paid deposits for launches, haven't started, but there are 25 on my spreadsheet now. So, sorry, guys.
That's amazing.
I stole all your business.
They didn't steal our business. So we do have a comment. Patrick's joining and listening from the car. So Patrick, glad that you could join us. I think he's actually on his way to a volunteer event or something tonight, if I remember correctly.
Concert or something.
Yeah. Just like me last time, except mine was for my kid instead of just volunteering. But Patrick, we're glad you could join for what you did. So from my perspective, I'm really interested, and we'll go through all of us, but I'm really interested to hear, because you're kind of in the middle of it, Jennifer, what's changed and is changing in terms of how you approach the work? What's changed about your processes, tools that you're using, anything like that?
At some point, I think it was last year, I was introduced to Adobe Podcast Enhanced Speech. Mm-hmm. If you haven't checked that out, check it out. It's amazing. It's like,
I use it quite often.
Yeah, I use it all the time unless it just makes things worse, but usually it doesn't. But so that is a part of almost every show. It just gives it a more broadcast quality sound. I don't know what it does, but it's magical. And that's the biggest change in process, like for show to show. But like overall, I'm not doing as much editing anymore. 2 things I said I'd never do. Hire people and edit video. Well, crap. I'm doing both now. So I hired help and they're doing most of the editing. Now I have 3 regular editors. And then we added video because I had an old client who was an audio client a few years ago, disappeared, didn't hear from him, came back to me a month or 2 ago, said, hey, do you do video now? And I was like, yes, of course I
As a
do.
matter of fact.
Starting today.
How much do you charge for video? This much. Well, that's too much. Okay, that much. I don't know. I'm just getting started in video. I don't even know what to charge for video. But it's whatever. Sure, come on. I'd love to have you back. It was a great show. I enjoyed it. So I have a video editor guy on my team now too then.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I was saying in the green room, a lot of what I do now is just download, upload, download, download. So I do the audio engineering part of it. So I get the files through Dropbox or Google Drive, depending on the client.
Boo.
I know. So I download the files. I run them through RX. I run them through Adobe Enhance. I make them sound good. And then I send them to the Dropbox folder of the editor. And then the editor does whatever they do and sends it back to me through Dropbox. We tried Basecamp after talking to Daryl Darnell, but it's been, I don't know. I'm not sold on it yet. I'm still in my free trial, so we'll see how it goes. I don't know. I didn't start all my contractors on it, but we're trying that out. Might try something else. I don't know. Figure it out. But then after I get their files back through Dropbox, then I either move it to the Dropbox folder or Google Drive of the client or upload it to the media host. So all I'm doing all the time is just file management, which is kind of nice. Sometimes I sat down to do one show the other day. I was like, I am not feeling on this show today. And I was like, what are you doing? Dalton's probably available right now. Just send it to him. I'm like, oh, hey, Dalton, you want another show? Yeah, I'll take it. I'm like, great. Thank you. He's great. So that's my process now. Downloading, uploading, downloading.
Has having those people involved in this changed how you have to think about pricing and money and all that stuff too?
Absolutely. My prices are about to dramatically increase like next week. I actually said the new number out loud to someone yesterday. They said, how much do you charge this? I'm like, it's this. I got to practice saying that out loud because it has been that. And we're not doing that anymore. We're going to get up there because I have more expenses now, of course, and I don't make as much money now, and I'd like to make money again. So I pay attention to the average every year that Steve and Mark do. I still probably don't quite reach that mark, but it's a lot better than it was. Yay.
Cool.
That's amazing. You had to like start practicing saying that price without that quiver in your voice.
I know. I know.
That's always been my issue.
Someone is doing a discovery call with me soon, and they're like, we need a beginner price. And I'm like, oh, don't know
Then
what
you
that
need a
means.
beginner editor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or it's like,
I'm not going to go back to what I used to charge. No. Or what Daniel used to charge, for Pete's sakes.
yeah.
No, in all seriousness, a beginner doesn't know what they're doing. It's going to be harder for you as an editor.
Yeah. I have to say my beginner price is actually more than my veteran price.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about your experience, but my experience has been once people have been doing this for a while, generally they get better at returning a high quality recording, or at least a higher quality recording, and thinking through what they want to do. So there could actually be less editing going on.
Yeah.
Do have a question from Steve. Jennifer, do you have any kind of profit ratio you're trying to keep? Like 30% over what you pay your contractors or 50%?
Yeah, I should, but I don't yet know that.
I'll share when I had contractors, my target was always like 50% between profit and owner's pay. It was never there. It was more like 25 to 30 because by the time I paid for them and then software upgrades and all the tools to run the business, I hadn't reached enough scale that it ever got to that. But that was my goal, was because it's still a very hands-on business for me, even if I was only doing like 50 to 60% of the editing, it's still very hands-on. I can't just like run on 5% margin like it was a Fortune 500 company.
I'm working with our small business development center here in Lexington, and they've given me like a spreadsheet website thing that I can drop real numbers in and see real time how these things can play out. And I haven't been utilizing it, but it's a free resource. So tap into your city resources, anyone who wants to start a business. But I've met with them a couple times, and that, it's not why I've grown, but it's helped me with my mindset of growth.
Okay.
But
Nice.
I need to drop my numbers in and look and see what it means, because I'm not a numbers person.
So I'm going to channel my inner Carrie for a second here. When are you going to do that, Jennifer?
That's a real good question. Tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
I think I have that time tomorrow afternoon after a consultation call, because I have those all the time now. But
So Daniel, what about you? Has anything changed in terms of the processes or the tools or anything like that?
Not as far as like workflow goes, as like getting client interaction or whatnot. I still use Slack for like talking to my assistant and kind of like company or like business related communication, email for clients, and Airtable for project management. Because Airtable is stupid expensive if you want to have like more than a couple people, because it's like $20 per person per month. So it doesn't make sense to pay all that money to have all my clients in Airtable. So I utilize the free Airtable as much as possible, so everybody has their own base. And the one thing I have changed, so instead before, they would submit their episode into Airtable, which would trigger a Slack notification. And then my assistant would go grab all the stuff from there, put it in like a main base where I worked out of. A couple of issues would arise, like where the client would update something and my assistant and I would miss it, or she might miss like an episode coming in, or just things were getting lost. So one thing I did add is a Zapier integration. So every time they add or edit in their base, my clients, it automatically updates it in the main base. That way, any changes, it's all automated, which saves a lot of headaches and a lot of extra work. Yeah, I've added tools as far as like post-production and kind of like putting out things, but really like nothing else has really changed with the workflow between clients and I.
Yeah, and we'll definitely hit post-production as well. So for me, very little has changed. I still get files by Dropbox. I still use Google Sheets to track like production calendars and stuff like that. I've just found that to be really good. But then my actual project management software is ClickUp. I don't have any of my clients in there. It's a hurdle that I've never really jumped through. And to be honest, with only a couple of shows to work on right now, I don't have a strong appetite to start pushing on that, because for just a couple of shows, email and Dropbox has been working fine.
Yeah.
I did make the switch last year. I was using Zapier, which you brought up, and there was a lifetime deal for Pabbly, which is kind of the low price version of Zapier. Not all of the integrations work quite as well, but it was a one-time purchase. I did the math. It pays out in like 18 months. So I said, let's do it. So now I was able to move myself down to the free version of Zapier and keep a couple zaps a month for whatever that is that Pabbly wouldn't do. But then I'm able to use that. And in terms of client onboarding for contracts and stuff, I'm using Signwell, which also was a lifetime deal from AppSumo several years ago. It's like DocuSign or like the document feature in Dropbox or whatever. But because it was a lifetime deal, I got that. And then for scheduling, I've actually started using, for most of my meetings, I've started using Google Meet because it's free. Instead of, it's not as high quality as Zoom. I know it's hard to say that, but
Wow.
especially when I think about like if I have a consultation with somebody, I'll schedule a Zoom, turn on the high quality audio so they can hear what I'm trying to show them if we're showing stuff. But for just a face-to-face, it's super quick. And one of the things I found was that I would create the event, and as soon as Google knew that somebody else was going to be attending it, they would put in the Google Meet link also. So then there'd be a Zoom link and a Google Meet link, and the people would get confused and go to the wrong one. So I just said, let's cut that out. I've been told there's a way to disable it. I've been through all the controls. I can't figure it out. I'm clearly not smart enough. So I just went with it. So I'm using Google Meet for all my meetings. And then I think one of the things that I did change last year, because I archive session files, and the final episode, like what's uploaded. And I got myself an external hard drive. So I actually archive it to that hard drive. And then I have that back up to Dropbox. So I have a physical copy here that I can pull over in a couple of minutes by USB. And then I have the Dropbox for the remote version. So I feel pretty good about the backup process. It's not quite as clean as I'd like. Oh, and Steve says that because we're telling AppSumo stories, he's going to end up spending some money. Hopefully, if you do, it's a good thing. I don't have any current deals to share with you. Pabbly was not an AppSumo lifetime deal. They have their own deal. And I don't think Signwell has been on a lifetime for quite a while, but there may be something coming up that the other two have. So I think that's what I have. What about post-production? There have been some significant changes in my post-production, but I want to hear about what's going on with the two of you first.
Well, I'll go next, or again, I feel like we're going in a little circle.
I like it. It's easy for me to keep track of going counterclockwise on my screen.
Yeah. So I'm still using Adobe Audition and Isotope RX 10 Advanced, but my contractors, unlike Daryl, who was on it, has everybody use Adobe. I haven't gotten that strict with people yet. As long as they give me a good sounding product and can fix things if I ask them to fix it. So far it's going okay. So I have someone using DaVinci and I don't remember what the other two use, but I do the final mastering and Audition as well.
Any new plugins or anything like that?
No, I don't get too fancy with that. I just kind of, I lean into Alphonic or Adobe and just kind of like get lazy with that type of stuff. Haha.
I think you're going to upset some audio engineers.
I know, but I'm not an audio engineer quite yet. That's why I need to get better. Now that I'm not doing the editing as much, I might have time to learn more audio engineering tricks. But I'm not very good at it on my own. I mean, I sat there. I had a client who worked with me for like 3 years, disappeared, came back last week with bad audio and said, "Can you fix this?"
Oh, no.
And I went, "Oh." So they have an outdoor conference and it's just bad. It was very bad. Oh. So I put it into RX. I played with it. I did the automated stuff. I tried EQ. I tried this. I tried that. And I worked on it for an hour and I still didn't like it. Threw it into Adobe. Didn't like it. Threw it into Alphonic. Didn't like it. And Alphonic says, give us a rating, 1 to 5 stars. How was it? And I gave it 2 stars and commented, this was terrible audio going in. It's still terrible going out. Not your fault. All right. I did it. They wrote back. They tweaked the settings, redid it, made it listenable. And that's what I sent to my client. So kudos to Alphonic for that.
Really?
That's really cool.
Nice.
So shout out to Alphonic.
That's a good little review for them. Because I haven't used them in ages.
I hadn't either. And then somebody mentioned it recently. I was like, well, Adobe didn't fix it. And I even tried like moving the little slider this way and that way and nothing. And RX, I'm not good enough in it on my own to know what I mean, I was doing what I thought I should do, but it wasn't working.
How about you, Daniel? You switched to Pro Tools, right?
Yeah, I got that big top tier subscription.
$800 a year.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yeah. That's the one. Nope, still on Reaper. But absolutely no plans to change. So I use RX 10 standard. And I know there's conversation in the Podcast Editors Club about like RX 11 and all that. It's just like, at this point, I don't see a point in upgrading again unless they do something crazy. Or if they do something stupid, then I have every reason to move away from them. RX 10 for my initial cleanup and then bring that into Reaper. I forgot to look at like what we talked about on the last time we went over this, but as far as like typical kind of, I guess the most common plugins I use, NS1 from, most of these are going to be from Waves, NS1 for like denoiser, Vocal Writer to help balance it, Sibilance for those S's I don't like, and then API 2500 is kind of my main compressor. But I'll also use like Sheps if I want something. If it needs a lot of work and I want to keep it simple, I'll throw Sheps in. That way I can do EQ and all this stuff and whatnot. Another good new plugin I recently picked up, D-Room 2, which is a really good D-Reverb plugin.
Who's that one by?
Ascentize.
Okay.
They also had like another plugin I was interested in, but I couldn't justify
Revive,
but I couldn't justify the cost at the time. But that one's like really good. I rarely use RX's de-reverb anymore. I usually throw that into my chain and Reaper as needed, and it does a great job. And then Fresh Air is another good one. That's also free, which I love. And then Relimit, which is built into Reaper. Now for some, so if you have an interview, like two people in the same room, so there's going to be some cross bleed. One plugin, it's a Reaper specific thing. So anybody Reaper users out there, it's called Auto Mixer. It's from Leandro Facchianetti. But basically what it'll do is like it kind of auto runs and does its settings, but it monitors the tracks. And whenever one gets louder than another, it lowers the second one, the lower one, even more. So that way it always emphasizes like who's the actual speaker.
Very cool.
Which saves a lot of time.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then we were talking about that a little bit before, but occasionally when I need it, I'll use Adobe's Podcast Enhance or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
The AI enhancer, which most of the time does a really good job. It's really funny whenever like it's an interview and then like there's some background noise or like a fan or something. It tries to create a voice for that. It just makes really weird vocal sounds.
Yeah. Yeah, it does that.
But it does, for the most part, it does a really good job if I need to, like, restoring really bad audio.
Nice. I have made some significant changes from what I did before, specifically in the area of audio repair. And a lot of this I owe to Jesse McCune, who has kind of pushed me to move away from using a repair stage when a repair stage isn't needed. So my old process, I get files. The first thing I do is I check them out and I go and fix things. So it's light background noise reduction, in almost every case, some kind of reverb reduction. And I would either use Acusonus, Deverberate, or I would use Isotope RX. And I would use them in the standalone programs typically. I would do some kind of like a mouth declick. I would do that as a separate process. I would do fixing the asymmetrical waveforms, right? Because you'll get some where they're kind of all over the place. And for headroom reasons, I want to have those relatively even so that I'm not pushing something up to clipping in order to get the other half of the waveform a little bit louder. So I would do some of that stuff. And I've basically stepped away from all of that except in the extreme cases. And I have a fairly standard set of plugins that I use now. So there's not a lot of variety. Still using Hindenburg. I thought very strongly about leaving Hindenburg last year when they rolled out their new version and basically just messed that up. But so far, I can't justify getting away from the editing workflow because it's built for editing. And that's the biggest time suck is actually doing the editing. So my typical chain, I typically use some Sonable plugins. So the Smart EQ, the Smart Compressor, the Smart Gate, if I need a gate, the Smart De-esser, which actually has a built-in deplosive as well. So it checks for sibilants and it checks for plosives. And there's some advanced settings where you can turn pieces on or off. So if there's not a problem with plosives, I can turn that part off. You can tweak the settings. I think it sounds to me more transparent than using something like the Waves. I think it was sibilants that I'd used for a while. And they also had a de-esser. I didn't like the way the S's sound when they did that. This sounds a little bit better to me. It's not perfect. It's not as good as a hardware de-esser, but it's also not $3,000. So it was much better than that. And then I've also started using their Smart Limit. So I'll typically run those on each channel, but not the limiter. I'll put the limiter on the master bus. And then if I need it, I'll use something like Supertone Clear, which is one that Jesse's talked about a lot. And that will do some level of noise reduction and some level of de-reverb. And those are really the two things. Sometimes I'll use the Isotope Mouth Declick. If I need that, just use it as a plugin. And then if I get something that's a hot mess that you might think of uploading to Adobe Enhance or using Descript Studio Sound, because basically it's so bad you have to recreate the audio, I'll use Accenti's DX Revive Pro. I paid the extra for the extra settings, and that it's not artifact free, but it helps. It makes it better than it was. And for me, if I need that one, it's bad enough that there was nothing else that I could do. So I very seldom use the standalone editor for RX or Acusonus at this point. Did I say Acusonus?
Yeah.
So very seldom do that. The only thing I use the standalone RX editor for is at the end, after I've exported everything, if I've got some asymmetrical waveforms, I'll use the automatic phase realignment to fix that, again, just for headroom reasons. And then on my master bus, I used to run a lot of stuff, 2 or 3 plugins in a chain and some other stuff. Now I run one plugin. It's called The Glue. It's an SSL bus compressor, similar copy type thing with a couple extra settings. And then I run the smart limit. And then I'll usually put Ulean loudness meter on there just to make sure that I'm getting the levels where I want them. And between the compressor on each channel, the one light compressor on the master bus, and we're talking like 2 to 3 decibels of compression usually on the master. And then that limiter, I'm generally able to get it within a half a dB on the first export before I do any loudness matching. So I feel pretty good about that. And that's kind of the full audio post-production. I'm still using Hindenburg. So I'll still use that to export the final audio, add the metadata tags, all that kind of stuff. So we'll get to future stuff in a minute. That's my audio chain. There are some other software packages that I've picked up recently, though, that are on some other stuff. So I've started using Cast Magic if I'm working on some show notes or that kind of thing. So for those that have gone and seen the podcast, like our show, after we get the file back from Alejandro, I'll run that through Cast Magic and I'll have it create a summary for me and find some interesting points in the conversation, some titles and that kind of stuff. And then just like any learning like language model thing, I go through and I fix it. And then that becomes the thing. And then I started using Mac Whisper for transcriptions. We do a transcription for this show as well for accessibility reasons. And what I've found is that transcription, which runs on my local computer, runs better than any of the other transcription services that I've used in terms of automation. I'm not saying that one, like if I paid for Rev with a human review, which is like $2 a minute or something for the audio, is like crazy expensive. I might be able to get that. But yeah, Mac Whisper has been a huge win.
It sounds like that's a Mac only thing.
It is. It runs on the Whisper framework, backbone, something or other. There may be a Windows version of it. I don't know. But that has been killer. You've got the option for different size language models that it can use for the AI portion of the transcription. And I use like medium or something, but you can get like a larger library basically, but then it affects your runtime. And I've found that I get really good results. It's not perfect, but it's good enough that generally for my name, I have to change Brian to Brian, and it spells Ensminger wrong, but it gets top tier audio right. And Abendroth, it usually gets correct. Longworth, it gets right.
Good.
And like, if it can get rothmedia.audio and realize that that's a website and treat it that way, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So I feel pretty good about that.
Cool.
So we've switched from doing Descript for transcription to using Cast Magic.
Okay. Yeah.
Because Michelle's found that's a lot more. Well, Steve kind of told us, and then we tested out. Michelle found that the transcript is much more accurate than Descript.
Which is sad if you think about it.
Yeah.
Because Descript is a lot more expensive.
Yeah. And like Descript, Michelle always had an issue like trying to like click and drag to fix the speaker labels.
Oh, dude.
Because she would do it and then like mess everything up. So she'd have to like go through a script and highlight what she needed to fix, export it into like a Word doc, and then fix it there because she couldn't do it in the script. And she doesn't have to worry about all that with Cast Magic.
So I actually, last year at this time, I was using Capshow for that. And one of the big frustrations I had from them is they didn't make it possible to download the transcription. So I felt like they did the transcription. Everything was based on the transcription, but you couldn't download an SRT from it, like the actual subtitle file. And part of me was like, I get that that's not really what you're doing, but come on, guys.
How hard is that?
But then also one thing I noticed was, and this is going to be true of any tool, their summaries and stuff were very formulaic. You got one that was like a movie trailer in a world where people are editors and everybody's an idiot. 3 people stand out and it's Daniel Jennifer, right? Or it was that kind of thing. And there were like 3 different formulas that they use, and their headlines were almost always the same set of formulas. And what I've found with Cast Magic is it seems like there's a wider variety, and it's less focused on trying to get that 4-sentence hook that reads like a movie trailer. and actually providing a useful summary. So I was happy to say goodbye to that charge. And then also Cast Magic, if I needed to, I can download that file. And they've been very responsive. I was sad to see CapShow go for me, but at the same time, Cast Magic has worked better for me. Do you use anything, Jennifer? Like any?
Yes. So I use Cast Magic and CapShow because somehow I'm still paying for both. So.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
That I know how I can save you some money every month.
I run out of space on one, then I go to the other and run out of space on that and go back to the other. And it's like, you run out of space. I'm like, yeah. If I would just like listen to the episodes, I might be able to write something, but I'm not listening to any episodes anymore because I'm not editing them myself. So that makes like show notes a challenge, but I have started charging extra for show notes and uploading because there were some people who slid in and scope creeped me for a while there. So I don't do that for free anymore. And I'm also not listening to the shows myself. So I'm just kind of hoping that Cast Magic is all right.
Well, and it sounds like Steve is saying that CapShow is going to go through a big update. So maybe you'll want to hang on to that. Do you have the early bird pricing with CapShow?
I don't know. They just take my money each month.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm still paying for that. Well, I better go use it because I just maxed out Cast Magic for this month. So I go back and forth. And I mean, I've put them head to head before, you know, when I was first trying to use them to see which one I liked better. And sometimes I like this one better. Sometimes I like that one better. I usually have to refresh my feed a few times. And Cast Magic knows now. I have a prompt, give me a 1-paragraph, give me a 2-paragraph summary for podcast show notes. So it'll do that as it's part of its magic.
Which is really nice.
Yeah, that's one of the things I've liked is if I get a prompt that works, I can add it to the automatic output. So I've got a couple, like one that I'll put in there. Like when it's processing this show, it will be essentially find me all the links for all the things we talked about. And it's probably not going to get 100%, but it's going to get some that I forgot.
Nice.
Yeah.
Because I'm taking notes and trying to make sure that I get everything. And for those that are listening later, there's going to be a lot of links because we talked about a lot of tools. But it helps, right? Because you miss stuff.
Yeah.
So one thing that I've been considering, and I'm kind of shifting toward the future as we come to a close on this part.
Well, before we do that, I do have one other tool I've just added. I'm really excited about like really getting into this. And this is what Steve was talking about earlier when he's like, that I sold him something the other day.
Oh, okay.
And it's called, this is an AppSumo deal called Minvo. So Steve had told me about, what was it? Opus Pro, I think. And I think this does something very similar, if not identical to. But essentially you can upload a video and it'll go through and pick out like clips and whatnot and turn them into like video clips with like captions that pop up on the screen and whatnot. So it's great for like YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels, or you can do, 16:9 resolution for whatever.
Nice.
Yeah. And so I uploaded like an interview and it gave me like 12 or 15 possible clips and go in and kind of tweak it, fix captions or whatnot. And so while I was saying earlier about the one client who went to monthly, but I talked him into doing a lot more content. That's part of what I'm doing is throwing it into Minvo and getting all these clips and shorts and whatnot out of it.
Nice.
How much is it still on AppSumo?
No, it's not.
I got an email from AppSumo that's like, this is like 38 hours.
Oh, bummer.
Like, this looks very similar to that thing Steve told me about that I've been meaning to check out.
I looked at it, and the big hurdle for me was that I couldn't buy it unless I also spent $100 for the annual membership to their elite program or something for AppSumo.
Really?
Yeah. I tried in like 3 different browsers to buy it. And it's like, if you buy this, you're also going to have to do this. I was like, never mind, because I'm not in a position to drop.
Yeah.
The plan I would have needed for what I want to do with it would have been like $150 plus, I'm rounding, right? Plus an additional $99 a year or something. So I said no on that. But I would definitely have my eye on the next one that comes through and see if that one makes sense.
Yeah. I'm excited about that one.
So one thing I've been thinking about, because I do at some point want to grow the business to where I have some people working for me again, but a couple things going on. One is I have some concern that employment law is going to change and I won't be able to use contractors in the future. And the other is I've looked at the pricing plan for Hindenburg, And if it's a business, it's a different pricing structure, similar to Reaper, right? You can buy it $60 as an individual or $300, I think, for
$229.
Yeah, something like that. The difference is Hindenburg, like a single license is like $400 or something like that one time, or you can subscribe to it. If you're a business, it's only an annual subscription for each user. So every time I bring somebody on, I'm adding another $500 a year in overhead.
Oof.
What I've been looking at is, if I think about a future workflow where the workflow could involve video and audio and shorts and all that kind of stuff, I'm thinking about, and I'm probably going to test, making the switch to DaVinci Resolve, because Resolve Studio is like $300 one-time purchase. And my understanding is it's free updates for a really long time. Maybe not for life, but I haven't paid for an update yet. And I've got the paid version already. So I'm trying to see if that workflow will work, because I would much prefer to be able to buy a license for somebody that works for me and have it be perpetual on whatever machine we use it on, without regard for whether or not that person leaves the business, because it's a really weird place to say, I want you to come on as a contractor, but you're going to have to buy this software yourself. You can only use this, rather than providing it for somebody as an employee. So that's one of the things that I'm thinking through. And also, kind of to Daryl's point, like if everybody's on the same platform, it makes things so much easier. I like the plugins I use, but DaVinci has some pretty solid stuff built in, right? So other than like their audio repair leaves a little bit of room for improvement in terms of like noise reduction and stuff, but it's included. So that's kind of where my head goes in terms of future stuff. I haven't really been keeping my eye on anything else, but I'm wondering, like, what about the two of you? What are you guys looking at in terms of the future or things you're keeping your eyes on?
I'm trying to learn how to be a project manager, and I've got like a consultation with somebody about digital project management next week, who's supposed to help me figure it out, because the two other editors who have teams I've talked to talk about automating it and getting your systems down and all those things. So for me right now, getting systems in place is more important than probably anything else at this point. Because an editor I talked to yesterday is like, okay, you have to read the book. 10X is easier than 2X or whatever. I'm like, okay, I'll get the book. But about scaling and stuff, I'm like, and if you read all these books about how to scale, it's all about the systems. And I don't have those in place because I just kind of jumped into it. So that is future thinking. Is it Basecamp long term? I don't know. Is it Asana? Is it Trello? Is it Monday? Is it something else? Is it any of these? Am I fine just doing it the way I'm doing it now? No, I don't think so. So,
well, I think there's a really tough balance between the system, which I'll call the system being the way you do things, and the tool that supports that.
Yeah.
Right. And it can be, my tendency is always to jump in and try and over-engineer the system based on the capabilities of the tool. And so I think, I mean, you'll have this consultation with somebody, but I think where my head would go is, what are the things that are the most commonly happening that we can make sure that we have a good process flow for that? Like, pick up the one that you think will just, it doesn't have to be the highest leverage thing, but the thing that you can get knocked out the easiest, that will take something off your plate and free up that time and that mental space for the next thing. Because I don't think you have to develop the whole thing at the beginning.
Well, not the whole thing, but it's, I mean, with 25 shows, it's getting hard to keep track of.
I'm sure.
So,
yeah. I haven't been there yet, so I don't have any answers.
Well, not all of them are doing anything right now. They're kind of in, like, one's about to go on summer break, so then I won't have to think about them for a couple months. They're education podcasts, so they always take a break over the summer, and they come back. That's why I got to talk to people who know more about that, because I don't have a systems brain.
Yeah.
My brain doesn't work like that. I keep things in my cloud, and when it rains down, I take care of it. Oh, and something over here now is raining down. Not necessarily in order of importance. It's just kind of like, oh, whatever it is up there. That's not advisable.
Daniel, anything you're keeping your eye on or thinking about for the future?
Because I feel like the systems I have in place are working fine. I guess, like, now is kind of like rebuilding mode as far as like getting kind of like, business back up to where it was. So marketing is going to be on that, which is something it's always been my Achilles heel. I hate doing it. I have no interest in it.
Well, you're going to have to get over that, Daniel.
Mm-hmm. I was talking to Michelle earlier today, and I think like an easy-ish solution is just like start a podcast aimed at our ideal clients.
Mm-hmm.
And that way, one, we can get like easy social media content from that, and also easier to keep up with podcasting trends and just kind of demonstrate like, hey, we know what we're talking about when it comes to podcasting.
That's what I use this show for.
Nice. Well, then if Daniel does that, you might have a second show, Jennifer.
Yeah. I'll hire you to do my editing.
So is there anything that we didn't hit before we move on?
Well, we didn't talk about client acquisition.
Okay, let's do that.
Which sounds like you two are challenged in at the moment.
Only 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So have you changed anything or just stopped everything and just haven't started, or what's happening there?
For me, honestly, I have not tried to push that this year. I've been really tired. I think I probably got a little bit burnt out. I know the idea of managing 10 clients with a full-time job doesn't seem like a lot, but I may have pushed it too far. And so I haven't. I kind of feel bad about that. And at the same time, at 5:30 tomorrow, when I go back to bed after feeding the dog, I'll probably not feel terrible about it.
And for me, it's like I haven't changed anything because I've never really done anything. I've always relied on like word of mouth and referrals. And I think like in the niche I focus on, like that has been through a huge slump, which is why it's also affecting me.
Gotcha.
So no, I haven't changed anything. Obviously I need to. And I think like also a little bit of burnt out and just like being hit with like pretty much like within a week, 2 weeks, having 5 clients come up to you and just say like, hey, this is it took a mental toll. And I think like starting a podcast, but also maybe looking at other niches to focus on, I think would go a long way. It's just, I'm not excited about that grind, doing that again.
I don't have this problem right now. Okay.
No.
No, and for those of you that are watching, if you go check out Jennifer's Facebook page, and I assume probably also her LinkedIn profile, you'll see why she's not having a client acquisition problem right now. I think if I were to summarize what I think I see is probably 5 to 7 in-person events a month and reasonably consistent posting on your part on Facebook and I guess I don't really use LinkedIn, but I assume it's there as well.
It's not as consistent on LinkedIn as it is. I'm trying to throw LinkedIn something.
The bar's much lower on LinkedIn, though. Let's be honest. The bar's not as high.
No, I'm trying to be more consistent on Facebook.
So if you're wanting an example of how to do it right, I would recommend checking out Jennifer's. She's focused. You're focused a lot on in-person, which
100%.
Really, I think, works for you. For me, the prospect of going out at night to talk to people, I like this a lot better.
Yeah.
This is more fun.
Well, see, I have a part-time job. I don't have a full-time job, so I'm not stuck in the office all day. So every Wednesday at 11:30, you can find me on Burt Road at BNI, meeting with the same people every week, trying to build the know, like, and trust value with them so that they will refer me. That's the theory anyway.
Yeah.
I think we need an episode where we just pick Jennifer's brain on how she's done all this in-person stuff, because it's like, that sounds awesome. I don't know how to get started doing that.
Well, I throw my own podcast meetup each month. That's me. I put that on. So there's one.
For those that are watching live or those that are listening later, if that's something you'd like for us to do, let us know. You can hit us up on Facebook, or you can reach out to us by email, info@podcasteditorsmastermind.com. And let us know that's something that you would want, because we want to make things that are good for you. Steve says that pick Jennifer's brain about how she finds time to sleep might be a show idea.
I don't have a problem with that. I am a power sleeper. So I get 10 to 12 hours a night, believe it or not.
Wow.
So I find time to sleep. It's a priority.
My pets don't let me do that.
I think we're going to have to start throwing stuff at you, Jennifer, before.
Oh, no.
So before that happens, we should probably move on to the Chat GPT question of the day. So Jennifer has that.
I do.
This is your opportunity also to join in the comments if you would like. So Jennifer, what's our question?
I asked it, I phrased it question of the day because it gave me the same superhero thing twice last week. So it says, okay, other than podcasting, I'm qualifying this. If you could instantly become an expert in any field or skill, what would it be and why?
So I'm guessing marketing isn't an option because that's going to be related to.
Dagnabbit, that was my idea. Don't kill my idea.
I'm like, oh, audio engineering. No, that doesn't count either. I'm like, that's what I would.
Instantly become an expert in any skill?
Yes. Expert in any field or skill. Nunchuck skills.
Bow staff skills. I think I would choose piloting.
Ooh.
Because I hate waiting.
I do want to get my pilot's license. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but that's just like a goal. Because I think it'd just be cool to be able to go flying.
Mita says stock trading.
Ooh, that would be good.
That'd be nice.
I would say like computer techie nerdy stuff, like web, like HTML, CSS coding stuff.
There you go.
Like that. I don't know anything about that, but it sounds like it would be useful and make me some money.
Steve says parkour. So I think, Steve, are you going to be Dwight or are you going to be Steve Carell from The Office? I don't know. Parkour sounds great.
So the thing that's come to mind is woodworking. So I've recently got into woodworking. And to be able to do it well, I think would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And learning how to stain. I've been struggling trying to stain because I built a nightstand, but I cannot get the staining right. It looks awful, and I'm really discouraged by it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, Patrick has one.
Yeah. Patrick says game show host. I think that would be excellent. Patrick, I think you'd be really good at that. Mm-hmm. I think I would probably just want to stay at home, but that might be a great one for you. So, yeah. We've hit all three of us. We've hit the comments. So I'm going to take the question of the week down. So one thing we wanted to share with you as the audience, in case you haven't noticed, we occasionally struggle to get out an email to everybody to go, hey, we're doing a show. So the question for you would be, if you find the show valuable and you're looking for something you could do to be involved, would you like to be responsible for sending an email every couple of weeks to say, hey, we're going to be recording tonight? If so, reach out to us, info@podcasteditorsmastermind.com, because we'd like to talk to you about that, because we forget, and that's not good, because the show's kind of important. So there you go. What if somebody wants to be a guest? Daniel, how can they be a guest?
Well, I believe you can just simply go to podcasteditorsmastermind.com/be a guest, fill out the form, and somehow it'll get to us and we'll figure out how to get you on the show.
Yeah, the magic gremlins take care of that. And we really do want to know if you want to be on the show, if you've got a topic that you're interested in. We're very much interested in making the show that's valuable for you. This is fun, but we want it to be good for you as well and to help you.
And that's whether you're an expert in something that you want to share or you're struggling with something that you want to get the community's input on. We would love to have you.
And with that, we should probably sign off. I have been Brian. If you still want to, you can find me at toptieraudio.com. And over here is
Jennifer Longworth.
This way.
No, wait, you pointed at me first. No.
I did.
Jennifer Longworth at bourbonbarrelpodcasting.com. And my socials are also Bourbon Barrel Podcasting.
And I'm Daniel Abendroth. You can find me at rothmedia.audio.
And unable to join us this week was Carrie Caulfield. We're hoping she can be back soon. We love her. We miss her. And she's important to us too. And with that, we're signing off, and I don't have anything smart to say. So Alejandro will probably do something fun with this. Bye.
Bye.
So how much is that?
So